This is Spunky.
And Snarky.
And we say,
Welcome to the show. Welcome back. So it's the end of August. Can you believe it? I can't.
I know, this year's gone by super fast.
So with the last week of summer in store, we wanted to celebrate another one of our summer favorites. This was a show I used to watch quite a bit on Nickelodeon, Salute Your Shorts. And I picked this episode because it's one of the ones I remember pretty well. It's called the Radio Calling Contest. And it's just a interesting, fun story of a radio contest.
Which is kind of funny because we don't have the same kind of radio that we had back in the day.
Yeah.
Where everything's very corporate now.
I mean, I remember dialing in, trying to request a song, and now you just like tweet things and
hope for the best.
Good luck. I could go into a lot about like being a BTS fan and how they won't play them on the radio and stuff, and it's ridiculous and
I
all
can
that.
go into a lot about how radio is different now than it was in the 80s and how they would break bands just by playing like a B-side or something like that, where they don't even do that anymore. It's like you have to campaign to get on the radio now, and it's fucking ridiculous, but that's beside the point.
But we're not here to talk about that just yet. Let's get into our show for today.
For today's episode, we're watching Salute Your Shorts, the Radio Call-In Contest, or the Sponge Saga, which is an alternate title. It's from Season 1, Episode 7. Salute Your Shorts ran from 1991 to 1992 on Nickelodeon for 2 seasons, but it ran in reruns forever. That's why it felt like there were more episodes than there actually were. And it was based on a book called Salute Your Shorts Life at Summer Camp that came out in 1986.
So the show opens up with our favorite camp rebel, Budnick, which I don't know what's up with this name or what's up with his redheaded mullet, which is beyond fabulous. But there's some rock music playing in the background, and he's going through his trunk of miscellaneous contraband or whatever. And the camp counselor comes in. His name's Ugg, which basically describes him very well.
Well, that's his nickname, because his last name's Lee, so his nickname is Ugg, like ugly.
Oh, well, he's pretty stupid. So he comes in, and apparently he has a date.
In the series, he dates the post office worker. I think her name's Mona. There's like various episodes where he's like out on dates with her.
He's going on a date, and he, for some reason, needs like something from Budnick. So they're looking through his treasure trove and comes across some aftershave, and Budnick's like, yeah, this will make you like a chick magnet. He's like, just use a drop. And he's like, okay, I'll take it. It like slathers it on, and Budnick's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Especially on his face.
And then we move on to the opening sequence. And Salute Your Shorts has a really memorable opening theme song where they're singing the Camp Anawanna song. And of course, the most memorable part is the Camp Anawanna, we hold you in our heart, and when I think about you, it makes me want to fart.
Which Budnick adds, that's not the actual line.
He's like, it's I hope we never part. Get it right or pay the price. But yeah, it's a cute opening theme song. And then we get into the main story.
We open in the boys' cabin where some of the boys are playing hockey, and Sponge is on his 1991 laptop doing his geometry course by mail.
This looks like some straight IBM. It's got that tan outer casing.
Yeah. That laptop probably cost probably a couple grand back in the day, which is crazy because now you can get a laptop for probably like $500. At first, I thought they said an online class, and I was like, wait, the internet wasn't out then. And I had to go back, and I was like, oh, no, it's by mail, his course. So he sends his stuff by the mail. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy to me. The other guys kind of make fun of him for doing homework instead of having fun at camp, but then they kind of leave him alone, and Budnick says that it's time for Giant Jim, so someone turn on the radio. Giant Jim is like the local popular DJ, and it turns out he's having a contest where you can win $100 if you answer some trivia questions. So he asks, what gland in the human body makes you mature and grow bigger? And Buttnick jokingly says it's the mouth because you can never keep it closed. And Sponge says the mouth's not a gland because he's super smart. And then Michael's like, well, if you're so smart, then what's the answer? And he's like, it's the pituitary gland, duh.
And they're all like, what the fuck is that?
Sponge is like, yeah, I'm not surprised you haven't heard of it. Budnick kind of gets pissed and tries to threaten him, but then they're like, wait, we can make some money. Like, if we call in, we can get $100. So then they decide to go and try to get on the phone and call in to win the money.
Yeah, Sponge is a little hesitant, but Michael's like, just do it. What do you got to lose? So Michael and Sponge get to the payphone, which is tripping my life out because when's the last time you've seen a payphone? And Dina, this girl from camp, is like gabbing on the phone about some boy and will not shut up. But she was kind of funny because she's like, he's got the 3 Ps, ponytail, piercing, and personality. And I was like, oh my God. And then he's like, wait, no, the 4 Ps, he's got a Porsche too. And I'm like, well, at least that's an upgrade. It's like, Dina, come on. He's got more tattoos than teeth. You need to let him go.
Well, it was the 90s, and, those ponytails were in at the time.
Yeah, let's forget about that. Anyway, so Michael tells her that Donkey Lips is using her bra as a slingshot, which I thought was kind of risque for
I know, me
kids'
too.
television. She's like, you better not be lying, and runs off. And so they put in their coins and dial the DJ, and the whole camp is kind of listening and hears that they get on. And so he gives the pituitary gland answer and he wins the $100. So everyone's getting excited because they hear him, and this siren goes off, which means he's eligible to win $1,000 if he answers 2 more questions correctly in the next 24 hours. But he doesn't know when they're going to ask the question, so he needs to be listening to the radio like all day, which is kind of crazy. Because like, why is this DJ on air like 24/7? So these other 2 girls, Telly and Zizi, catch up with Dina and they tell her what's going on and they want to get in on it. So they go to the boys' bunk where Sponge is studying some molecular trigonometry, and they're all like, ooh. But then they're like, so do you know like Madonna's first single? And he's like, no, what are you talking about? That's stupid. And Telly's like, it's just stupid because you don't know the answer. And they start rattling off more questions like, do you know all the guys' names in INXS? And who's the first woman to win at Wimbledon? And what's George Michael's real name? He's like, I don't know. This is all like stupid trivia. And the girls are like, look, we know all this information. If you cut us in 30%, we'll teach you everything you need to know. And he's like, no, I don't need to know this. But Michael's like, maybe we should think about this. So the girls leave and they leave it at that.
So they transition outside where Michael's doing some archery and Sponge is reading a book on classic musicians, but he gets upset because there's no mention of George Michael or his real name. Michael says that there's 2 kinds of questions in this world, guy questions and girl questions. Guy questions are things you know, like how tall the Empire State Building is, and girl questions are everything else in this world, which is a little sexist and a little bullshit. But, I know a lot of useless pop culture trivia in real life too, so whatever.
I'm like, Alex Trebek knows everything else, so shut the fuck up.
Sponge then asks Michael, do you think Giant Jim will ask a guy question or a girl question? He's like, well, it's hard to tell because you never know what he'll ask. Sponge doesn't think that a stupid disc jockey is going to outsmart him, so it's going to be a guy question. And then Michael kind of trying to weasel his way into being Sponge's manager and get like a 90-10 split of the money, but then he's like, no. Then we get a random announcement from Dr. Khan, who's the, head of the camp. You never see him. He's kind of like Charlie and Charlie's Angels, but you always hear his voice. He always makes these random mass announcements throughout the show. He talks about the Counselor of the Week, Kim, and how she led a nature hike through a hornet's nest, and so they hope she's doing better in the clinic.
Yeah, it was kind of random, but I guess it was just supposed to be like a funny little break. And then we get back to the boys' cabin and they're listening to the radio, like just waiting, and it's driving them crazy because they don't know when Giant Jim is going to ask the question. So someone turns the radio off and they're like, what the fuck? And it turns out to be our favorite camp counselor, Ugg, whose face is half blue, like Smurf pale blue. And he's pretty pissed. He's looking for Budnick, obviously, who sold him that aftershave. And he finds Budnick under the bed. And he's like, what is in this aftershave that you sold me? He basically admits that among other weird shit like mouthwash and stuff, there's blue tie-dye in the aftershave. So Ugg is pissed, of course, and even though Budnick's like, Smurfs in this season. And he's like, everyone's grounded until the blue comes off his face. Because he's all upset that he can't go on his fancy date tonight that probably wasn't like fancy. It was probably they were going to like Sonic or something. Like driving through. I don't know.
Well, they have those like car hops, so maybe that's kind of fancy. I'm joking. I don't know. I've never been to Sonic because we don't have any around here.
I have. It's not that fancy. It's like a Dairy Queen, basically. Anyway, Ugg leaves, and then Michael tries to turn back on his radio, and the batteries are dead. So, of course, Budnick seizes the opportunity and is like, I got some batteries here if you can cut me in up to 20% of this jackpot. Sponge is like, no, and Michael's like, yeah, we'll do it. Anyway, the radio comes back on, and of course, they're like, where's Sponge? He's only got 4 minutes left to answer the question. What is George Michael's real name? And they're like, fuck.
And dramatic music plays as they cut to commercial.
And they realize that guilty feet have gotten over them.
They then kind of have like a weird montage where you see them like running through the woods towards the girls' cabin as Giant Jim taunts Sponge on the radio. Sponge tells Michael that they're not giving them 30%. Michael says he's the manager, so let her handle it. They walk in. Tully says that her 3 favorite words are told you and so. And Michael says that they'll take the deal because they need to know the answer.
Really, she should have upballed them for like 40% because now they know the question, but whatever.
Sponge tells Michael that he's the worst manager ever. Dina then tells Sponge that George Michael's real name is Georgios Paniatou. I knew his name was Greek because I knew he was Greek, but I didn't know it off the top of my head. Michael says that that's harder than pituitary to say. Sponge asks how she knew that because he looked in every book he had, and Dina says he's not reading the right stuff and shows him her magazine. Sponge says they just gave him 30% for girl trivia. Michael then says they only have 3 minutes left. Tully says if they need anything, call them, and hands them a walkie-talkie. And then there's like more running through the forest and taunting from the Giant Jim.
So they finally get back to the phone. And of course, Ugg is on the phone chatting to his girlfriend. And they don't know what to do because they're supposed to be grounded. So Ugg's breaking off his date because he's blue. No, not sad blue. His face is blue. Toilet bowl blue. So they walkie-talkie over to the girls. And the girls just start screaming in their cabin. And Ugg like dashes off to go find out what's going on. So Ugg leaves the phone off the hook and Michael picks it up and uses his deep manly voice, which sounds nothing like Ugg, and is like, this is Ugg, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and hangs up. Which he could have just hung up, but whatever. Michael makes Sponge give him some money for the phone and like tries to put in the dime, but then drops it through this grate. So they're like, okay, we only have like 2 minutes. We got to get this dime. And see some like gum on the side of the phone. And they grab it and they're like, it has to be wet. And so they like Rochambeau to see like who's gonna like chew it. And I think Michael has to do it. And it's just like the grossest thing ever. Anyway, they get the gum wet and they like put it on the end of this metal rod and like finally like MacGyver it out. So they get it in the phone and just in the nick of time, like they call in and give the correct answer. Back at the girls' cabin, Telly just like off the top of her head tells Ugg that there's like a skunk in the cabin and like screams some more. And eventually, like after they hear that he got the question right, they're like, oh, it flew out the window. You were so brave. You can leave now though, because we gotta go to sleep. And he's like, oh, okay. So Ugg goes back to the phone. Meanwhile, after Michael has hung up with the DJ, the phone rings. And for some reason, he picks it up. And it turns out to be Ugg's girlfriend who's like yelling.
You just hear like the peanuts like, wah, wah, wah.
But angrier. And they just like leave the phone. So Ugg comes back to the phone and picks it up, and the girlfriend is like all upset with him and yelling at him. So basically there's one question left, and they have to stay up all night because they don't know when the DJ is going to ask the question, and they'll have to call in. which is kind of stupid. It's like, why don't they just sleep in shifts? But no, apparently Sponge has to stay up all fucking night.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. So the next morning, the DJ taunts Sponge, saying he must be sleepy, as he's barely awake to eat breakfast. And, everyone's kind of giving him shit, especially Budnick, because he's the bully of the group. And he's like, I got 30% on the line. Like, you better answer the question, right? And then all of a sudden, like, Ugg comes into the mess hall, and he's super pissed because someone snuck out of the bunk to make a call and hung up on his girlfriend. He wants the person who did it to stand up and face the consequences, and everyone stands up except for Sponge, who's, like, asleep. And Ugg's like, so Sponge is the only one who didn't go out of the bunk last night? That's fine. Two can play at this game. And he puts everyone on double permanent confinement until he finds out who hung up on his girlfriend. Michael's like, what are we going to do now that we're on double permanent confinement? Budnick's like, well, we're going to call a meeting. And so you still hear the DJ taunting Sponge again, pretending like it's time for the question, but then says he has to wait longer. The gang meet up in the boys' cabin. Sponge is asleep, and they're like, they need to help him out because their portion's on the line and they really want him to win. Basically, if he wins, they all win. So they use Donkey Lip's smelly sock to wake up Sponge. And then they kind of do like this montage where like each member of the gang teaches Sponge like their particular like expertise. Like Tully teaches him about sport, and like Budnick teaches him about like metal bands and guitars, and Dina teaches him about like pop culture stuff. Michael teaches him about Gilligan's Island. Zizi sings Kumbaya 'cause she's kind of like the hippie chick. Donkey Lips teaches Sponge how to do an armpit fart. And he's like, hey, you think he's gonna ask that? And he's like, you never know. And he starts to learn more as he goes along, but then he's so tired he starts like combining things together. And then they always keep using the stinky sock to wake him back up. Finally, Sponge just conks out, and then he hears the like DJ taunting him in his head, and he's dreaming that like his friends are berating him because he like let them down. But then Michael kind of snaps him out of it and asks him if he's okay. Sponge says it's all a big ball of mush in his head. Sponge just kind of wants to give up, but Michael says you can't give up now. You're like super close, and this is your chance to show the rest of the kids that you're not like a little bookworm wuss. Sponge says he's not a wuss, he's just scared because he's like the smartest kid in camp, and like what if this DJ kind of like outsmarts him, then like he's gonna like lose his reputation. Michael tells Sponge that he has faith in him and that he should too. Sponge says thanks. Michael then asks for a 65-45 split, and Sponge tells him that's 110% as he shakes his head in disgust.
So the gang is all huddled around the radio, and finally, it's time for the last question. So the DJ Jim comes on, and the question is, what color is a giraffe's tongue? And Sponge is like thinking, and he thinks it's red, and the gang cheers, but then he's like, it could be black too, and he's not super sure. And, it's for $1,000. And Budnick says that Sponge has a crack in his egghead, and Donkey Lip says that Sponge is as dumb as him, and Sponge gets super bummed out because he gets pissed off that he's not as smart as he thinks he is, and he doesn't know what to do, and everyone's bummed out because they all want to cut this money, basically. So they're about to give up, but then all of a sudden the door bursts open, and Ugg comes in, who's like, I know the answer. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, I know what color a giraffe's tongue is. And they're like, how do you know? And he's like, when I was in college, our mascot was a giraffe. And when I would sit in the stadium, he would cheer with his big black tongue. A giraffe's tongue is black. And they're all like, yay! So they call in and they're like, is the giraffe's tongue black? And he's like, sounds like a question. But yes, you won. And then like Ugg comes on and is basically like he's taking the $1,000. He's like, because they made me blue. And DJ's like, how can you be sad? You just won. And he's like, no, toilet bowl blue. And that is the end of the episode.
So thoughts on the episode?
It's a fun show. I mean, it's a lot of like corny like jokes and slapsticky stuff. And then there were like some things that seemed a little like adult for a kid show.
But I kind of liked that because they acted like real kids. It wasn't like when you watch Full House and everything's all sickeningly sweet and you're like, these kids aren't real. They were in situations that actual kids would face at the time.
I like these Nickelodeon shows. Yeah, I agree that they were realistic, so it was fun to watch them. And I like the slapstickiness and the stupid fart jokes and things like that.
Yeah, I loved like Hey Dude and
Hey, dude.
15. 15 was Canadian, but it was still super dramatic.
It was funny because I wrote down, like, in the video we watched, it's told you, like, what was on next. And I was like, oh, it's Clarissa Explains It All, Roundhouse, Ren and Stimpy, Are You Afraid of the Dark? But next was Legends of the Hidden Temple, my personal favorite. But anyway, I mean, it was fun times. It was good kid television.
Yeah, again, because like they didn't pander to kids. Like a lot of kids shows like talk down to kids, and like this was like real kids doing real things in real situations.
And although it was cheese, I still found it like entertaining to watch even as an adult.
Yeah, it was still a fun show.
Of course, most of the things I liked were just reminiscing about payphones and like the old style computers and like just things of the time.
And the like 80s pop culture trivia, even though it was the early 90s.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we're going to move on into the brain basement.
All right, and welcome to the Brain Basement, where today we're going to talk about some camp stories, some summer vacation stories, and other things. When we were kids, we went to Girl Scout camp, which wasn't a sleepaway camp, although you did sleep away like the last 2 nights.
Yeah, but you just like sleeping bagged it and you didn't have no cabin or nothing.
No, you just slept under the stars. It was fun. No, I wasn't really a Girl Scout. I was a brownie, and I did like transition to become a Girl Scout, but I think there wasn't like a troop in my area, so I would go to the camp, but I never really was an official Girl Scout. It was fun because you do like crafts and stuff. That's where I learned how to make lanyards, which I loved making. Do like little plays and go swimming. But yeah, sleeping under the stars is kind of crazy because, you know, you'd have to like cook your own meals and you'd have s'mores and stuff and you'd bring your like little mess kit. I think you'd cook like taco meat and stuff like that.
I don't even really remember what we ate. I remember having a little mess kit.
It was just like a plate, like a knife and fork and a cup or something. And then it had like the mesh bag so you could wash your dishes.
Yeah, I was super awkward and I didn't really know like many people there.
Yeah, because like most of the kids didn't go to our school. A lot of them came from like the Catholic school that was in our area, where I knew some of them from like CCD, but I didn't really know the Catholic school kids all that much.
Yeah,
and they were kind of snobby sometimes.
Yeah, it was hard to like get along there, but I kind of liked being outdoors.
Sometimes I do like just relaxing and like taking in like some nature, but I'm not gonna go on a hike or anything. That shit ain't happening.
I have recently. I only went hiking because I was trying to get to the beach and I took a wrong turn in Albuquerque and ended up hiking like through like this mountain pass to get to like a different beach. It was kind of weird, but it was really cool because like I got to see the sunrise over the mountain and like there was like a rainbow over the ocean at this lookout point. It was really cool and I definitely need to get out there again, but I don't know. That was before Corona, so I don't know if they block off things. But they probably opened it back up now, but like for a while I think they closed all the parks and stuff. I mean, the only other thing closest to camping was like outdoor ed, which that was fun.
I remember the one night of outdoor ed, we also did a sleep outside thing. And I remember if you had to pee, there was like an outhouse and it was like a wooden shack where you peed in a hole. And there was like no lights. And I was like, yeah, fuck no. I am not peeing in that at night where there's no lights, probably spiders in there. Like, hell no. So I like held my pee all night until we got back to camp. And oh god, it was like busting a gut by the time we got back to. It was like a hike back. It was probably like a 20-minute walk back to camp too. Yeah. After holding your pee all night.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had to eat a hot dog too for dinner that night. And, you know, I think I talked about hot dogs in one of the early episodes and how I threw up on one and I hadn't had one.
Yeah, I remember when I went to outdoor ed, like people got all sick on like the Asian food night.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And when I was a kid, like I didn't eat Asian food as a kid, which is hilarious because I eat tons of Asian food now. Yeah. But at the time, like I only ate the rice and everyone else got sick.
Oh, I do want to tell a summer story.
Okay.
Which is kind of related to camping because when I was a little kid, we used to go up to our uncle's house. He lived like 3 hours away near Lake Don Pedro. And we would go up there, and for the first couple times, we did camp in a tent. And I remember that being shitty. And I was only like 4 or 5 at the time. But then later, we would get a house that was like nearby.
I vaguely remember this, and I have like a traumatic memory of this.
Really?
Yeah, because my cousins or something wanted to go down to this beach, and I think you had to walk down this cliff, and I was like not having it. I was like, no fucking way, and I started crying. And then I also remember being at the place we were at, and I couldn't sleep or something. This is hilarious. And I thought I saw the ghost of like the Beatles. They're like heads floating or something, which is funny because like not all of them are dead.
Only John would have been dead at that time.
And I remember like vividly what it looked like. Probably just a dream.
There was a pool there too, like kind of like up the road a bit. And it didn't have like a diving board, but it had like a wooden diving platform. And then you would kind of like climb up and then you would just jump off. But it was like really high up. Even as a kid, I was scared of heights.
I don't remember that, but I do
No.
remember when we used to go to Tahoe and like I was such a weird kid. Like I wouldn't go down the slide. Like I'd go down the slide, but I'd hold on an inch down. I
Yeah.
wouldn't just slide in because I'm weird. I don't know. Oh, we didn't even really get into Whispering Pines.
I talked about that little last episode.
Oh, yeah.
When we were at my uncle's house, my dad had a boat. It was like a speedboat, nothing fancy. And he would keep it at my uncle's house. And then when we'd go up there, we'd go on Lake Don Pedro. But anyways, it was the summer of '89. He brought it home because I didn't know at the time, but he was going to sell it. And so it sat in our driveway the whole summer. And so like every day we would wake up and like go outside and we'd play Batman because it was Batmania, the summer that, you know, the Batman movie came out. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
And we would play like Batman in the boat. And it was like the best summer ever.
Did we have our bat shark repellent? Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
I was talking about '89 Batman, but I love Batman '66 too, and I love the Batman '60s show because it's cheese-tastic and campy, and I love it.
Michael Keaton Batman is so good because it's creepy as fuck.
I don't know why, but like our aunt said, "Oh, I'll take the girls, meaning us, to see a movie." And she's like, "What movie do you want to see?" And I'm like, "Batman." She was gonna take us to separate ones because you were a little too young for Batman. And so like I made her take me to Batman, and that movie's really dark. Even as a kid, that movie's dark, but I loved it.
I remember being like super traumatized by the second one, like when Michelle Pfeiffer falls out the window and all the cats come.
Oh my god, yeah, that's
like
creepy.
Like that, and the scene when like they talking about the penguin as a baby and like the strollers left out on the ice and like the ice cracks and like it's all creepy.
You know his dad,
it's so good.
The penguin's dad is played by Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens.
Oh really?
Yeah.
We need to watch that again.
Yeah, the first two Batman with the Tim Burton ones were really good.
Yeah.
Sorry, we tangented way the fuck off.
We
but that's okay.
went a couple levels down into the brain basement today.
Yeah.
So we're gonna come back out and focus on some music in our music spotlight.
All right, now it's time for our music spotlight. For today's topic is radio songs.
So we're gonna start it off with our first song by Autograph. Turn up the radio.
I want some music, gotta give me some more. Yeah, I love this song. Another Grand Theft Auto Vice City song. It's just a fun song. It rocks. It's awesome. All right, moving on to number 2 is a disco classic with Donna Summer. On the radio.
Whoa, on the radio.
Yeah, we love some Donna Summer, some disco.
I do.
You have the disco box set.
Someone got it for me.
Did I get it for you?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I forgot that I had given it to you.
Anyway, moving along to number 3 with Queen.
All we hear is
Radio Gaga. Radio Goo Goo.
Lady Gaga took her name from the song.
It's
and it's
true.
also a great song. You know, Queen's awesome.
And everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury's great.
He's just a good old-fashioned lover boy.
Ooh la.
Ooh, lover boy, what you doing tonight?
Hey boys. All right, number 4 is one of my favorites. It's the Ramones with Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? Rock and roll radio.
Let's go.
Yeah, this song's awesome. Kiss did a cover version of this, which is also good. Yeah, the Ramones are awesome. I do know more than 5 Ramones songs, even though I don't wear the shirt. That's the thing. It's like most people wear the shirt of
And
the
don't know
Ramones,
who
and they
they
don't
are.
know any. They just know like I want to be sedated.
So, moving along, number 5 is The Buggles. Video killed the radio star.
Video kill the radio star.
Pictures came and broke my heart.
Oh. Yeah, another one from Grand Theft Auto Vice City. They put all the good songs in there. Trevor Horn, who is a music producer, was in the Buggles. He produced Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax, and a bunch of other good songs. This song's just a classic. I mean, it's the first video they played on MTV back in '81. Well, we had one honorable mention, but we just decided to make a second one. So now we have 2 honorable mentions. The first one is a kind of obscure song, but it's something I like, and I wanted to put it on, so it's our show. I'll do whatever the fuck I want, right?
Pretty much.
Anyways, it's an Italian disco song by a British lady, Taffy, and it's called I Love My Radio, Midnight Radio. I love my radio, my midnight radio. And it's a fun little 80s bop. And our second honorable mention that we just decided to put in because we've been singing it off mic throughout this whole episode is Eric Carmen's Make Me Lose Control.
Turn the radio up
For
the sweet sound.
hold me close,
Never let me go.
Yeah, I love that song. You know, Eric Carmen's probably most famous for Hungry Eyes from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, which we talked about in a previous episode about how our dad would play that song all the time. He loved the Dirty Dancing soundtrack and movie.
Turn the radio up for some sweet dough. Answer the questions like which gland helps you grow. What's George Michael's real name? God, I hope you know. Maybe. It's a jam
All
because
right.
we kept singing it all day.
While we were doing this episode. All right, and that's it for Music Spotlight. If you want to listen to these songs in full, you can listen to them on our website.
Well, that's been our show for this week. I hope everyone has a lovely weekend as we're leaving August behind and getting into September pretty soon. Hopefully everyone's staying safe and not catching the COVID, and hopefully things will get back to normal real soon.
Yeah. If you'd like to drop us a line, you can email us at spunkyandsnarkyshow@gmail.com. You can check us out on our website at spunkyandsnarkyshow.wordpress.com. Or you can leave us a voice message on our Anchor page, which is anchor.fm/spunkyandsnarkyshow. Thanks again for listening and have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Bye.